Hello, welcome back to Laser Cut and Fly RC Models. I'm the Laser Model Guy. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to carry on with creating the components for the Spitfire. And today we're moving on to the main plane or the main wing, and I'm going to produce the spars and all of the ribs that make up the main wing. We'll arrange them all on Lightburn, ready to send off to the laser. Okay, let's get on with that then. Okay, before we get going, just a quick word about the channel. For those of you who are finding it useful, interesting or helpful with your own projects, there is a way for you to support the channel. If you look down below, or if you look in the three dots in that corner down there, you'll find a thanks button. If you click on thanks, you'll be able to make a small donation to the channel in order to help the channel and to help keep the channel going. For those of you who do this, thank you very much. Now, let's get on with the project. Okay, the first thing that we'll start with is we'll produce these two wing spars. And we're going to alter the size of these slightly. You can see the front one, which would fit in here, is slightly bigger than the rear one, which would fit in here. So we'll be altering the size slightly because the whole wing, you can see, is by this here, this statement here, is covered on the original control line plan, is covered with 1/8 balsa. We won't be doing that. We'll be covering the wings with aura cover, but the centre part of the wing, just here, we will be covering with 1/16 balsa to give it a better connection with the bottom of the fuselage. So we'll be altering the sizes slightly, but I'll show you exactly how we go about that in just a minute. I'll just produce these two wing spars at this size to start with, and then I'll show you what we do with them. So the way I'm going to do these is very straightforward. I'm just going to use the line tool. I'll select a different layer just so that it's got a contrasting colour, so we can see what we're doing, and we go from that corner down to this corner and then all the way along to the end corner and then all the way back, and it is simple as that to make these to make the spar. What we need to do then is go to nodes, and we'll just click on our shape, and then if we just highlight this node, we can use Control Shift and then our arrow keys to just make sure that is right on that outside corner, and so that the line follows the mean edge of the outside line there. And then we'll do the same with this one. We'll just highlight that node and then we'll just move it until it's in exactly the right place, so we can be absolutely sure that we are that we're very precise with our size. Just get to the end and we'll do exactly the same. We'll just highlight that node at the top and we'll just bring that across. Each of these moves is 1/10 of a millimetre, so we can be quite accurate. There we go. That's that one. That's that first spar made. So if we just move that over to one side. Okay, so we'll just make the other one, which is the bigger of the two. But let's make this second spar in exactly the same way as we made the first spar. I'm just going a little bit quicker this time because we're going to adjust the position of these corner points using nodes, so we can actually be quite quick putting them roughly in the right place. Just move along, move that one into place, select this one and do exactly the same. and this final one. And that gives us, oops, that'll give us a perfect shape. Okay, that's the second spar completed. If I just move that over to the side here, and we can do a quick comparison, and you can see this second one is considerably bigger, or considerably thicker than the first. Okay. Next, it's time to look at the ribs, and the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to use this rib number 1 as our main template, and I'm going to reduce that in size as we go along the wing. I'll show you how I do that in just a couple of minutes, but what I'm going to do first is I'm going to trace the entire outline of this rib, and I'm going to use that as our main shape, and we'll put these slots for the wing spars, we'll put those in later. Okay, so all I'm going to do is, using the line tool again, I'll just change the colour or the layer so that we can see what we're doing with it, and I'll just go from here, and again, just the way we do all of these shapes, I'm just going to roughly follow the outer curve all the way around, and this is mostly flat to about there, so I think we'll be able to just put a few of these nodes in the bottom, and then we get to there and finish that off. Okay, so same as usual, what we'll do is we'll go to nodes, we'll select our outline, and then we'll bring those nodes, we'll just bring those right into line with the shape or the outline of our wing rib. So I'll just bring that down and in. I think what we might need to do there is just add, well, let's see what happens. We'll bring that down first. We might need another one in there, but we'll have a look. We'll see what it does when we convert these to smooth curve nodes. We'll see how close it is. Okay, I think this is the bit that we've left flat, so let's just see what happens when we bring that node down. Okay. There we are. Bring all the nodes down so that they just touch this outer part of the shape. Oops, just like that. And then what we'll do is we'll convert those to smooth curve nodes just by hovering over it, pressing S, and we can get that to follow quite well. There. That looks quite good on that bottom part. Let me just convert this one to a smooth curve node. The same again. I think that's quite good, quite a good yep, following quite well there, I think. There's one that we haven't brought down, so bring that down until it's on the edge. Now I'm going to leave that as a corner node because the next part of the bottom of this rib is flat. So we've followed the curve quite nicely down to there, and then it's flat from there on. So I'll leave that as it is. And I think if I convert that to a smooth curve node at the top there, let's see. We can just bring that in a little from there, and then what we can do is we can just grab that and just bring it down. I think that follows quite nicely. A little bit out at the bottom there. What we can do is grab that node and just move it in a fraction. There we go. I think that's fairly good. It's following fairly well. So convert this to smooth curve. And I think that's looking quite good. Again, smooth curve node. Okay, just need to bring those down a fraction. There we go. I think that follows quite nicely. We'll just bring that node down a little. There you go. And then if we get hold of the tab there and do the same by using the arrow keys with shift and control, it's a little more accurate than trying to drag these tabs around. Okay, I think that follows quite nicely. I think that looks quite good. So if we come off there, keep that selected, we can just move that to one side so we can see what we've got. And there we have the outline of the of what we will be using as our typical rib, and we'll make all the other ribs the same, but scale them down for whatever size we need. And if we stay on that, if you press the full stop button, it'll just flip that 90 through 90 degrees. So we can bring that and just check that it fits. And to be fair, that looks a bit big. So that looks a little bit big. So the plan here, where it's got this rib here, is a little bit out. So what we'll do is we'll adjust the size of that to make sure that it's the correct size, and I think I'll do that just by using the corner, so that it will go down, so that it will reduce in size uniformly. Okay, so if we get the bottom right on the bottom of this right on there. Now what we've got now is the tip of our former is right at the front tip of the wing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a bird's mouth into there, and we'll put a strip of square balsa along the front edge, along the leading edge. Now the strip of wood that I've got, or the balsa that I've got for the leading edge, is a 1/4 inch square balsa. So if I make a square shape, and what we'll do, I'll just make that into the same as the rib, the same layer as the rib. What I'll do is, if I make this 6.4 millimeters, which is which is a 1/4 inch, and then if I rotate that through so that it's at the right angle for us to use as a bird's mouth, what we can do then is we go to nodes, we hover over one of these edges and press A, and we now know that that is exactly upright. So what I'll do is I'll bring this down, and what I'm going to do is make this fit these two sides here. So if we just come in, and then if I press Control and Shift and then use the arrow keys, I can just move that into position. And what I want is these two corners, that corner and this corner, to just be touching the outer line of the wing rib. Now if I press Control with this selected, and I then select the wing rib as well, I can now drag this wing rib out until the point of this square touches the leading edge. And the reason I'm doing that is in order to make sure that when we cut the bird's mouth, the wing rib will be the correct length. Now I realise the profile will be slightly different here because we'll just sand the front of this square, so it will be a very, very minute difference in profile, but I don't think that will cause us any problems whatsoever. So in order to complete that bird's mouth, now all I need to do is take this shape here, and without moving this inside edge here, I just want to drag this edge across and this edge across, so that we'll be able to use our snipping tool on this end to make the rest of this shape. If I were to drag this now that way, it would distort the shape, and the same would happen if I were to drag it that way. We wouldn't end up with this 90-degree bird's mouth. I'll just press Ctrl Z and get that back to where it was. So the thing I need to do, what I must do with this is, if I grab the wing rib as well, just bring these over to one side, and now I need to rotate these until our bird's mouth is horizontal and vertical, the sides, because then when I click on this, without any distortion of the main shape, I can just stretch that, and I can just stretch that, and now I can use our snipping tool and get the perfect shape in there. So just snip and snip, and we've now got our bird's mouth shape in our wing rib. Okay, I'll just bring that back upright, and we can take that back and have a look how that sits on our wing. There we are. So that's how that rib will look, and when we put our square leading edge in, that will bring the front of this rib out to where the leading edge is on the plan. I think if we take this square here, which has been tipped on its side, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that, Control C, I'm just going to put one above each of the ribs or formers that we're going to be making. Okay, now the reason I've missed this one here is because you can see that's the same rib. This is rib number 1, and then there's 2 of them there where the wing turns up at this point here. So so this rib will work for both of those. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drop this square into place. Just like that. And then I'm going to press Control so I select both the rib and the square at the end, and I'm going to then Control and copy so that I can produce a new one right there. And then if I just bring that down, we can see that we're a little bit long for this position. So if I just move us over so that the bottom of our rib is level with this left hand side of the rib shown on the plan, and then if I come to this corner and then just bring that up until the bottom of our rib is level with the bottom of our rib on the plan, and then what we'll see is that the top of the rib's still in the right place, but because we've just reduced everything proportionally, this bird's mouth will be just a fraction too small now. So if we take the copy out, we can delete that and then bring in our full-size bird's mouth, and then all I want to do is line that up on the top of the rib and see where we are with that. Okay, so the way I'm going to deal with this is I'm just going to select our rib, go to nodes, and I'm going to snap this node to the corner of the full-size bird's mouth, just like that. Snap this corner to the bottom of the bird's mouth, and that corner's already close enough, I think. Well, no, we'll just move it onto the corner. Okay, now we know that that rib number 2 is exactly right, and it's got the full-size bird's mouth on. So all I'm going to do is exactly the same process using Control. I'll press Control so I select both, and then I'll make a copy, Control C, bring it across and put it where we want it for the next rib. And all I'm going to do is get the level with the left hand side of this rib, and then I'm going to, I think what I'd better do here is shrink this up until we're level with the where the rib goes, and then look at the top. I think the whole thing needs to come down slightly. Yep, there we go. So if we just go up slightly. Now I think what we should do now, because the curvature here is getting steeper, I think we'll move the whole rib over until this point is above the centre of the rib on the plan, because that might just alter things slightly. Okay, in reality the change is so slight. I was a little concerned that we might find ourselves just above the line here, but the curve or the change is so slight I don't think we need to be concerned at this point. So what I'm going to do then is take this bird's mouth out and delete, and put in the full size one that we had. We'll make sure that we get that right where it needs to be. go Control and Shift to move that into place. Okay, and then if we select our rib, go to nodes and just move those nodes into position. Okay, and that's our next rib completed. So if we select the nose and then select the rib by pressing Control, we can then Control and copy and then come across to where the next one will be, Control and V, and then we can do exactly the same as before. So just move it into position so it's aligned, and then shrink that rib. And as we're doing this, because we're using this corner, it's not only shrinking in length, but it's also shrinking in height. So it's going down proportionally, so the wingtip is tapering in both directions. So now that we're correct at the bottom, what we'll do is we'll move that rib over until it's over the centre of our rib, and what we'll see is just at the top there we are slightly high now, so using the corner there we'll just come down until we're in exactly the right place, and then what we can do is take this square, and you'll see that that's now slightly smaller than the original. So take that square, we'll delete, and we'll bring in a copy of the original, and we'll just get the tip of that in exactly the right place where we want it to be on that line. And then if we select the main rib, go to nodes, and again it's exactly the same each time. Now we can see that because the ribs are getting smaller and the nose therefore, or the leading edge, is getting comparatively larger, you can see now that we've got a slight distortion here. So what we might need to do with this node at the bottom, you can see how that line curves there. We'll just move that out slightly just to make that curve look more natural and appropriate, and the same on that side. Okay, so then if we press Control and we select both again, we can Control C and then come across and Control V, and we've now got our last former, or our last wing rib, in the right place there. So this will be quite a drastic shortening. I think if we come to, if we follow this line here, this is where our aileron is going to be, so we'll need to make some alterations to these ribs in a short while anyway. But so if we just come to where that aileron would come to, so we're in a straight line across, and then we can make sure that our trailing edge at this point encompasses that. Okay, so just bring everything down and then bring our rib up slightly. What we can do now is move across until our bird's mouth is in the center of where our rib will be. Okay, and now we can adjust that accordingly, and then we can remove this one and put the next one in its place. Okay, So if we go to nodes, we can now make an adjustment to this final rib, and we'll probably have to reshape this to some extent because of the difference, the size difference that we've come to here. So I think if we just delete that rib, that node there, by selecting it and pressing D, and delete that node there by selecting it and pressing D, we can then perhaps this one here could do with a little more shape. So if we just move that out slightly, and I think the top probably looks fine. I think we're good with that. We're okay with that. Okay, so that's the basis for our ribs. They're not complete yet, but there's a little bit more for us to do with those, but that's the general idea of the ribs. Okay, so with the with all of those ribs roughly shaped out, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a trailing edge, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to make a complete outline of the wing and then come in a distance from that in order to create that. I'll show you how I do it now, and then what we'll be able to do is work out where the bends are, where the cuts are, and we can then start thinking about our ailerons. But let's make this outline first. So if we use our line tool again, and we'll just pick a different colour so that we're not confused with what we're doing. So I've gone with layer 1. And we'll just do exactly what we normally do. We've got the plain centre line right there, so we can go on that line, and we'll tidy all these up in a minute once we've gone all the way around, and we'll use nodes to do that. So just the same way as we've made most of our shapes, just follow the outline, and then we come all the way back to here, and that's us completed. If we now go to nodes, what we can do is zoom right in and make sure that this node here, we'll just select that, make sure that node puts us, and I'm going to go to the outside of this center line here. So using Control and Shift and then our arrow keys, there we are, right on that corner there. So we're on the outside of that outline, and we're on the outside of the center line. So we drop down to the bottom, and then do exactly the same here. So we select that node and we just move that across until our line up here, we can see, is right on that outer edge of that center line. Okay, so let's just go to our next node, which is here, and we'll bring that down to that outside edge, and then we'll do the same all the way around, and that one looks like it's probably very close. There you go. If you accidentally catch one of these like that, just Control Z and it'll take you back to where you were. Okay, I think that one's in place already. So just move them all. Okay, and just follow that process all the way around. And sometimes if you can't see the node, what you can see is where the line changes direction. We'll just get all of those nodes right on that edge of that line. That one looks like it's about the right place there to me. And we're back to the beginning. Okay, so if we now go round again, and what we'll do this time is we will hover over each one, press S and turn that into a smooth curve node. And then what we'll do with that is we'll just make sure that that we're following the outline. Just press S and you can see how they track quite nicely. Okay, and then there's two functions for these tabs. If you move the tab in that direction, you can see that it will move your curve where you want it, and we can get quite close like that. But also, if you move the tabs in these directions, you change the magnitude of the curve. If you understand what I mean. So you can do both things, and by using both or having both in mind, you can get it to follow the outline really well. So we'll just change this into a smooth curve node, and then just tweak each one. There we go. And that's those complete. So we've now got an outline of the wing. Now if we come off that and we just take a look, you can see that follows our line pretty closely. So I'm quite happy with that. Now if we use our offset shapes tool and we come in 15mm, or that's 13mm, you can see that on the scale of this wing here, that wouldn't quite be enough. So let's just increase that maybe to 25, and you can see that just comes into, you can see that comes to where our formers finish. Really we want those formers to overlap. We want those formers to come further in, I think, and actually cut into that trailing edge. So with that in mind, what I think we need to do is, I don't want to make the trailing edge any bigger. I mean 25mm, that's over an inch, or just about an inch. So what I would rather do is just extend these ribs slightly, otherwise we'll end up with quite a flat trailing edge. I think the best way to do this would be to use the offset tool again. So if I take the outside shape there, and then I come in 12.5mm, that'll give me a mark to go to. So if I come off there, and now what I'm going to do is I'm extending each of these ribs until they would reach this halfway line. So I'm just having to estimate this one a little bit because our line obviously turns there, and we'll have to make adjustments to that in a minute. So each one of those just extend it by a tiny amount. And that one's already at the right length there. Okay. Okay, so that's what we can do now is take this center one that we've used as a guide and delete that. With the outer line and with the this inner offset line, we've now got a shape for the majority of our trailing edge, and we'll be able to cut that out. So what I'll do is I'll take all of this over to the side so that we can now start dealing with it separately. So just by selecting each one, I'll have to use control because I don't want to select our the main sheet behind. All these little squares need selecting as well. There we go. So with all those selected, what I can do is I can bring those over. Right, now, okay, so first things first, the this centre bit won't exist because obviously the trailing edge will come round, and the best way for me to deal with that is if I go to nodes and then I just take these end two nodes here and then just move those across until they cross our line there, and then what I can do is I can take the snipping tool and I can just snip both of those away. Oh, I've got a little bit more down here. And now what I've got is I've got an outside edge or a trailing edge there, which I think will be quite good. What I do want to do is I just want to look at this corner a little bit. We don't seem it doesn't seem very smooth to me, and then we'll also have a look at this inside corner here as well. So if we go to nodes, and that seems to be our problem there, so that was easy fixed. And then what I want to do is go to nodes again on this inside line, and we just want to smooth this out a little bit. So what I'll probably do there is if I just hover over those and press D, and then what I can do is insert a node there and then bring that to there and convert that to a smooth curve node, and I think we'll now find we've got a better inside edge there. Oh, let me just have a look at that. I don't like this shape here, so I'll just take a couple of those and delete those, press D, and then let's insert another node there and we'll make that into a smooth curve node too. There we go. A little bit better. Right, now this front edge is going to be a 1/4 inch leading edge. So how I want to deal with that is if I just follow that, draw a line and just follow that. Just like that. I'll just change that one, I think, to a different colour. Okay, maybe go to green, I think. No, that's difficult to see. Go back to red. And then if I go to nodes, just convert those to smooth curve nodes. There we go. So we've now got a trace of that front edge, or a line that follows that front edge. Okay. And so all I want to do with that line is bring that down until it just goes inside of this bird's mouths, or these birds' mouths here. Just like that. And now I know that that leading edge, which will follow around, I need to cut into our trailing edge here in order to make this the right shape to fit our leading edge that comes round. What I'll do with that is I will go to nodes. So if I insert a node here where that leading edge will finish, and I make that into a corner node, hovering over it and pressing C, and what I can do is I can delete most of these nodes and then insert another node here. I can bring that down, and what will happen now is our leading edge will come down and it will finish on our wingtip there. So these I just need to delete some of those until we're level with this inside edge, which was on our line on the wing earlier, but we'll be able to adjust this in a minute anyway. So I think we've got far too many nodes in there, so let's just remove some of those. And then what we'll do is we'll put one in there, and we'll bring that up, and then we'll make that a smooth curve node. There we go. Okay, and so what we can do now is insert a node here, and take that straight up, and then bring this one down, okay. So if we were to just take all that and let's just group it so that we don't lose what we're doing here. I can see I've left that little I can just delete that little part of the leading edge up there. So if we bring this back, we just sit it on top there, we can see a little bit better how this is going to work. Now that's our rib there, so this one's a little bit out of place. So what I'm going to do, I'll just move the whole thing up first. There we go. Okay. So if I ungroup and then I move this one rib until that bottom edge is right in line with where it should be. Now what I can do is select our main outline here, go to nodes, select these two nodes and then move them across accordingly. And they'll join our rib. Our rib will sit right against those. Okay, the other thing we could do is we could just curve that down like to there and have it just connected to the leading edge, but just to make the wingtip a little bit stronger, I'm going to fasten that to the rib as well. Okay. Next thing to do is to separate the trailing edge into usable parts. So I'll just move these back over to here, and you can see how this is beginning to take shape. Obviously there'll be two more ribs in here, but they're a copy of this rib number one here at this side. So the next thing to do is I'm going to just make another two of these ribs, and they'll sit right there. They'll sit right there or there or thereabouts, and they are these two ribs here, those two, and they sit side by side, and they'll be over at a slight angle in order to give us this dihedral shape here. Now they are the same as rib number one. You can see they're the same ribs. So what we'll do now is we will take just the outline of the trailing edge, and we'll place that on, and we'll work out exactly where our ribs are going to go and what we're going to do about those ribs. Okay, and the best way for us to do this is to, if we create a shape, and we'll make it a rectangle, and it will be 3mm wide or 3.2mm wide, because that is the material that we're going to be using for our ribs, is 1/8 balsa, and that can sit there. And what we want to do is get that rib right on the centre of these ribs that are being shown. On here, just like that. So we'll copy that one, Control C, and then we'll bring that over, and we'll put two of those here, and we want those just either side of our line here that shows where the dihedral will sit. So just bring this one up, and then we'll put another one here, and we'll get that right in the centre. I think that's good there. Another one here, and then another one here, and another one here. We'll just place those Again, that one looks central. It seems to be finding its place in the centre, and that looks perfect. So what I want to do now is grab all of those. So we'll grab our trailing edge, and then using control we'll grab each of these ribs as well. Okay, and then the next thing we need to do is to make sure that these ribs that we've now put on here, these little these ribs, they're as low, they come down as far as our proper ribs, the ribs that we'd originally put together. Okay, and so this rib looks to be around about the right place. This one isn't far out, it needs to come in the same depth as this one because we placed all these earlier, as you recall. Okay, and what we can do with these in just 1 second is we can use these to cut out slots in the trailing edge so that our ribs, when we come to assemble, will be in exactly the right place. So what we'll do is we'll move these ribs off to the side and we'll label them up, tip that level, turn that one level, and what we'll do is we'll label it up. We can adjust the height of our text to let's say 4mm, and all I'm going to do is label that as number 1. And then if we come off there, what I can do is I can set that text to our engraving layer, and then I can set the outside to our cutting layer, and then I can group that, add in the tabs, which we do. In fact, we'll be separating this later, so the tabs are probably not important at the moment. Well, never mind, I've done them on that one. Now, as you recall, these are both rib number 1 as well, so all I'm going to do with those is I'll just delete those out for now, and then I will copy this and then make 2 more. So that's those 3 ribs there, and then this one will come out, and we'll just set that upright, and this will be rib number 2, which we will do exactly the same thing with. And then we'll just group that. And that's all of our ribs out the way and put to the side, so that we can now concentrate on creating this trailing edge with all these ribs in the right place. Just group all of those and then convert them all to the same layer. And then what I can do then is, using the snipping tool, and then we'll be able to snip away anything that we don't want. But before I do that, let's just make sure that we've got a line down here, because this is going to be where our dihedral is, and we need to cut the trailing edge at that point. Okay, so if we go to our snipping tool, and what we can do now is we can remove everything that we don't want, and what that will do is that will leave us with our slots for our ribs to go in. Okay, so I'll just come back to this one in a minute. So you can see our trailing edge is now going to have these slots built in for our ribs to just sit in nicely. Okay, just come back to this one. So back to our snipping tool. Okay, just take that bit out as well. And so what we're left with there now is a trailing edge, which will work quite nicely, I think, with our ribs. They'll just slot in there nicely. So with that done, what we can do now is we can remove all the rest of this, which was only ever there as a structure for us to shape and create our trailing edge. Okay, so all we're left with is our trailing edge. Next thing to do is for us to separate this now into sections, and the reason we're going to do that is, first of all, this trailing edge would be too big to fit on our workspace, which is here, but also we want to make sure that the grain is always running along this trailing edge, and if we cut it out of one piece, that means up here the grain would be running across, which would create a very weak section. So what we'll do is we'll organise this so that we've got lines cutting lengthways that will help us to make a nice trailing edge where the grain follows round. And I'll show you how we'll do that. All we want to do is draw a straight line, and that straight line will take it from this bottom corner here, and we'll just take that across just along like that, and then we can do a similar thing just here. Take a line and we'll bring that across just like that, and then from here we'll take a line and we'll bring that across like that, and that will just leave us with the tip, the wing tip, where we've got some grain going across, unless we take another line across there, which we can do that. So we'll do that. There we go. And then the best way for us to then deal with this would be for us to create a copy. So Control C, and then if we produce another one of those just down here, and what we can do is we can get our snipping tool, and if we snip there, we've now got this first piece here, and then if we snip down here and then snip and snip, we've now got that second piece. And then if we come up here and we snip and snip and snip and snip, we've now got the third piece. And then if we come up here and we just snip away these parts, we've then got the fourth piece. And then if we snip away these parts, we've then got the last few pieces. So we'll just reassemble that so you can see how that works. So this one will be up here. Just had to move that using our keys to get that right in place. So that'll fit there like that. Our next piece will fit just in there like that, and then our last piece will fit just there like that, and that gives us the components for our trailing edge, and we'll be able to lay those out on our workspace there so that they're all following the grain, and it'll give us the strongest possible trailing edge. Now there is one last little bit, and that's this one here, and the reason that we need to look at this is because this goes right the way across the central section of the wing, and so it needs to have another part on the other side. So if we control copy, control V, and then we flip that one, and then we bring those together, just like that. We can use our snipping tool and do that. And so that's our central part of our trailing edge. Okay, and that will fit right there. Okay, so far what we've done in these last three videos is we've produced all the formers, and we've produced the keel, the outer edge of our main fuselage. We've produced the tail section, the vertical fin and the rudder. We've produced the spars for the wings. Now we need to do a little bit of work on the spars for the wings because we made those at the original size for the plan, and we also need to do some further work on these ribs before we're ready to send off to the laser cutter. But that's all I'm going to do for today's video. So what we'll do in the next video is we will just finish off these parts. We'll separate the keel, we'll adjust the spars and the ribs, and then we'll be ready to send across to the laser. So thanks for watching, look forward to seeing you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you later.